Hello everyone. Many things have happened during the last week while I was on vacation. I have a long list of them. I'm going to speak about some of them in this video, and then I'm going to cover other ones in the upcoming videos because I don't want to make this video too long. First and foremost, let's try to cover the most important part, the Kherson offensive. So a good question came up saying that, well, it doesn't seem with Russia reinforcing now the Kherson area here, how do we still get the counteroffensive? Because I'll remind you, the Kherson counteroffensive was supposed to be essentially as a counterpunch to Russia concentrating efforts in phase 2 when they were supposed to go around on the Donbass axis. And while the forces are occupied in Donbass, then Ukraine said, okay, then we're gonna go and take over Kherson. We know that Russia basically abandoned their plan and moved in forces to Kherson area and started basically preparing for an offensive. This, of course, means that now there is so much more forces on the Kherson area that just a quick advancements of Ukrainian troops is just not possible because the forces are too deep. But we definitely knew that Ukraine was up to something. There was the sense of what is the plan of Ukraine that's going to be in play here. And now we know absolutely well what it was and how it's being executed. It is the trap that is as simple as it is dreadful for the Russians to be in. Because after the troops went out from the Donetsk region to Kherson, they started to populate north side of the river area here. But then, as they were populating, basically Ukraine let some of the troops in, and then the other troops that were supposed to come in, the fresher ones, the fresher regiments, essentially the bridges got destroyed. So now there's pretty much no solid entry to this Kherson region. Ukraine basically wanted, okay, how big a piece can we chew on? And they literally controlled every step of the way to let as many Russians in onto this peninsula as they see fit in a reasonable amount of time that they can controllably attack. So we were expecting that, well, as Russia was having more and more forces in the area, we know that they've separated into kind of, you can say, roughly 3 battle groups or 3 formations. And this was the most important kind of indicator, like globally. Obviously, there was also reports from the ground, but it was expected that Russians are preparing for the offensive. The problem is Ukrainians saw this and they struck to prevent it. While Russians still here really want to do an offensive, it seems more and more that after the targeted strikes by the same HIMARS systems, the Russians here, they just cannot get their shit together. They are stuck. Their command posts are being hit. Their anti-air support assets are being hit. Their concentration of forces are being hit. And obviously their ammunition depots are being hit constantly, every day. This happens like clockwork. So right now, all the Russians that came to here, they are now sitting ducks. They don't have enough coordinations and strength to essentially go on any major offensive as they were intending to, because they were intending to get even more support from the land. But now that support can't come. So now these guys, they tried to probe some of the areas. We know that they tried to kind of push around this area. There was also some push around Snihurivka here. So they tried to do some poking to find some kind of weak points. And they still do some poking because I'm getting reports here and then. But they are very much sitting ducks right now for the Ukrainian artillery. There is very little supplies that come into because the supplies literally need to use a ferry to get across the river. And this is obviously not sufficient enough to get the big army support that they need. So the plan is for Ukrainians is as simple as that. Just hit them from long range, destroy everything. What makes this a good plan for the Ukrainians is the fact that we saw that the Ukrainians are using the HARM missile. So the HARM missile basically was a game-changing weapon right now for the Ukrainians. At this stage, they've acquired it some packages not long ago, and now they're using it constantly. And this beast, okay, maybe it's an old missile, but the point is it was made to counter the C-300 anti-air system, which Russia uses a lot. So this negates very much Russian anti-air support in the area. So now not only Ukrainian HIMARS systems, not only 155 millimeter artillery is hitting Russians in this area, but also the aviation. This is big. Aviation is a big force multiplier. So right now, Russians are sitting in this pocket and being essentially shelled at from all sides and not really responding that well with their own shelling. It's a dreadful situation to be in if you're Russians. There are reports that really some Russians are actually trying to get back, but those are unverified. So what do we know more about the Russian plan is that yes, they wanted to kind of get an offensive, but it seems that they are understanding that this is not possible. They are now gathering up in kind of these three main areas. Here is the top. We have the Enerhotar nuclear station around this area. This is where the big problem with the nuclear station is happening. But this triangle is essentially to prevent the push towards Melitopol, because Melitopol is central to this whole south operation. And if Melitopol falls for the Russians, then pretty much this whole region will fall. And that is basically the situation. Russians moved forces from Donetsk to the south, and they're not even doing a new offensive. They are just sitting there and essentially waiting to be struck by HIMARS. This is the problem of the Russian situation, and the discussion that we had a little bit before, that whatever Russians do, it doesn't seem that they're having a good time, and they're not. But some of you might object, well, but what about the gains on the east? Because like we know that about this area has been gained on the east, and we also know that there is like some movement around here. Well, my friends, so during the last essentially 30 days that this offensive was going on, well, firstly, we know that there has been significant reduction in armor. So the infantry that is fighting on the ground is a lot lighter. And there has also been a significant reduction in support assets, and there also has been significant reduction in circulation of manpower. So we know that they don't have a lot of reserves in these areas because a lot of those reserves were pulled. This is mostly achieved by essentially first and second line of attack that are advancing this. So people of the Russian side, they're suffering heavy casualties here when they're advancing. And I think the most important thing here is to, again, not look at every single village that is being taken somewhere on this outskirts, because right now that's the only thing that have been taken, villages. There has not been a single, even medium-sized city taken so far, and Bakhmut is the first one to come. And, well, the fighting for that is not yet even started. They're still fighting like on the villages on the outskirts. But it might come in a couple of days. So important part is that the plan of the Russians' military victory was to essentially, well, we were counting if they would go to Dnipro, in this region, if they would like to take Dnipro, when they were taking Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, they were advancing with a tempo of 500 meters per day. That 500 meters per day meant that it would take them about a couple of years to get from essentially where they were with Severodonetsk to Dnipro. Right now, with all the fighting in the last 30 days, we know a new number. And the new number is just over 330 meters. Well, my 3 is terrible. So right now, all this offensive, I'm saying it very loosely, on the east that they're doing in Donbass, it is advancing only through villages, not even the first major cities or even medium cities, is advancing with a tempo of 330 meters per day. That means that it would take maybe 3 to 4 years at this tempo to reach Dnipro. And you see what my point is. So that's why, yes, it's very unfortunate that Ukraine has to withdraw from some of the villages on the east, but the Russians are not advancing. This, in a big strategic terms, this is a terrible situation because they are not creating enough pressure for Ukrainians to send significant reinforcements on the east so they can then maybe try to start an offensive somewhere, maybe, hopefully. And this is a big problem, right? So Russia is not having a good time. Obviously, we know that they have reinforced the southern border. We also know that there is a lot of really, really desperate attempts to advance through Pisky. Again, it's a single village. It's a single village. This is not even a city, Pisky. This is a village. The city is Avdiivka, and Avdiivka is still standing. Even here at the north, they are not advancing as fast as they were hoping. Remember, we were talking a lot. They were supposed to already kind of go towards Vesele. I was expecting that they would actually advance here and then maybe start to encircle. And Pisky, we were expecting already that it would be taken. And right now, as far as we know, it's only like half taken-ish. And again, it's just a village, one village. Obviously, taking over the line then will allow them to expand a little bit. But again, slow. Too freaking slow. And that's what we need to understand. Ukraine has the strategic initiative. that is floating in the air and it's about to grab it. And this strategic initiative is what will allow eventually Ukraine to overcome and win. So what can we expect about the Kherson offensive in the coming days? I would expect about week or two, at least that's what experts are saying, week or two, or maybe even up to a month of heavy polishing of whatever Russian assets they have in the area, and some of the assets on the south side as well, that would be reinforcing them at some point. And then basically we could see quite a quick sweep of whatever forces there are remaining here that has deficit of supplies, deficit of weaponry, and basically heavily demoralized. So that's the expectations. So while we don't see the big scale offensive that was expected during the phase 2 when there was Donbass offensive, now in phase 3 the Russians here are basically just waiting to be annihilated. Finally, I want to cover a big and important thing that strategically changed the outlook of this war, and that is of course the strike on the airport of Saki around this part. Everyone has seen the pictures of the airport. The actual truth was that there was actually airport strike here as well, and there was somewhere else. I think no, not Jankoy. But the point is, there were multiple, up to 3 points where the strikes came at the same time. And now we know a little bit more what happened. We definitely know that it was not ground operation. We definitely know that it was not a HIMARS system, because it seems that HIMARS systems are not yet present. And again, Russians would instantly come out with some kind of reflection on it. The two theories that I'm leaning to is that there was anti-ship missiles that were modified to be fired essentially at the ground targets, and then they were either navigated, manually worked around. I don't know. Not a military specialist, a technician on how the weapons work and how to navigate them. But the point still stands. It was a very quick strike, and it was a very brutal strike. By all means and accounts, it destroyed or damaged from 9 to 20 planes. Different sources say differently. The big part is that this shaked the very foundation of the Russian society. If you read any kind of Russian tweets, comments, their discussions, the fact that Ukrainians were able to strike, the idea of the Russian occupation, that's where they got recognized as a thief. They stole something and they didn't get punished for it. So they had their thiefly pride in that, yes, ours, not yours, ours. And they got basically slapped in the face. Will this slap matter in a military sense? To some extent, not that much. However, in a political sense, this is another brick that actually was felt for Russians like a seismic wave that went through it. We know the first one was the sinking of Moscow. Now the strikes in Crimea. And this is good, because this builds the foundation for the future decay of the Russian mythos of advancing and taking over and being successful and winning. And they can actually start believing into the fact that they want to be losing. And to end this video, I want to leave you with two numbers. Those two numbers are basically the indicators when the Ukraine start winning the war. And to do that, there are a couple of triggers that would speed up this victory significantly, because right now Russia still has major forces in the area. Ukraine still doesn't have enough equipment, especially heavy equipment, but it's getting there. It's definitely getting there. But two numbers are as follows. One number is 60 and the other is 1,000. So 60 is the price of oil that you should be looking at, because Russia's economy right now is struggling. What they're essentially doing right now is they're hiding all the statistics about their economy, and the only thing that they can do, they're basically plugging the holes with dollar bills. They are literally throwing money at the fireplace because they're out of wood. They're running a budget deficit, and this budget deficit is quite large. It's going to be very hard for Russia to sustain this in the long term. Some economists are saying that it's going to be around 2 years before they are going to start having serious issues with actual money supply. But then they can always print money, and they probably can get some help after 2 years from China or any other parties that would be soft enough to circumvent sanctions and already go back to the business as usual, because no one still can come to the terms with the fact that they're living next to the essentially Hitler 2.0. If the price of oil drops to $60 a barrel, that will be tremendous issues for the Russians. At that moment, the Russian budget deficit will skyrocket into oblivion in a way that sustaining it will become hard. Those 2 years will turn maybe less than 1 year. So that will be a significant change that would require significant cut within budget. And then this will obviously be both significant economic pressure and also significant social pressure for the Russians. That is one thing. So one way of Ukraine essentially can win this war if the oil goes low enough. Well, not win, but gain significant advantage. The second part is military. Ukraine needs to kill or remove from combat about 1,000 men per day. Right now, by estimates, Ukraine is able to essentially get this number to 500. So as Russia is receiving casualties, then are getting more people into the Russian military, into the mercenary bands and so on. And right now, it's a parity. Ukraine is able now to reach a parity. So the same number of essentially Russian troops going out is the same number of Russian troops that are coming in at a constant tempo. So we can say that Russia can still stay around this level for some time and be a military threat to Ukraine. However, if this number will increase, and when it will increase, and the key point that we're looking for is about 1,000 men per day, that is basically when Ukraine starts literally wiping out Russian military. So at that stage, we should be expecting that within a couple of months, the Russian military will stop being sufficiently capable of fighting, and then Ukraine will see literally combat victories, like full scale, full advance, complete disaster for the Russian military. So there you go, 2 numbers. I have still a lot of things to talk about, and I will record another video maybe tomorrow to cover it, because there's a lot of topics. Nice to be back.